Hello, this is Tony Hiller from RealClimateScience.com. New research shows that rising sea level in Connecticut is much worse than expected. Jennifer Walker, a PhD and laboratory research associate at Rutgers University, says that sea level in Connecticut is rising much faster than expected, and it's because of climate change. Wow, she has a PhD and she works at a prestigious university. She must know what she's talking about. Let's take a look at the data so we can see for ourselves. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has two tide gauges in Connecticut. One is at New London and the other is at Bridgeport. The tide gauge at New London shows that sea level has been rising at a steady rate for more than 80 years. And over the last few years, sea level has fallen. Long-term sea level rise rates at New London, Connecticut are extremely predictable and very consistent. And it's exactly the same story at Bridgeport, Connecticut. Steady rate of sea level rise for more than 50 years. So why does Dr. Jennifer Walker at Rutgers University believe that sea level rise rates in Connecticut are much worse than expected? The reality is that sea level rise rates in Connecticut are very predictable and should be exactly what any serious scientist would have expected. The Obamas don't appear too concerned about sea level rise around Connecticut because they just bought a $15 million mansion on the beach at nearby Martha's Vineyard. This shouldn't surprise anyone because 13 years ago, Barack Obama and Joe Biden healed the planet and slowed the rise of the seas.
And I am absolutely certain that generations from now, we will be able to look back and tell our children that this was the moment when we began to provide care for the sick and good jobs to the jobless. This was the moment when the rise of the oceans began to slow and our planet began to heal.
It would appear that Dr. Jennifer Walker is contradicting Barack Obama by claiming that sea level rise is worse than expected. But enough nonsense from Jennifer Walker and Barack Obama. Let's look at some actual science. Sea level in eastern Canada is rapidly falling. This is because during the last ice age, which ended 20,000 years ago, Canada was covered with several miles of ice. The weight of that ice pushed the land down into the mantle of the earth. Then when the ice melted starting 20,000 years ago, the land began to rise back up again. So sea level appears to be falling in eastern Canada. This isn't because the level of the ocean is actually declining, but rather it's because the land is rising up relative to the ocean. But during the last ice age, when the land in Canada was being pushed down by the weight of the ice, the opposite occurred along the east coast of the United States. The land outside of the ice sheet was bulging upwards. And now that the ice over Canada is gone, the land along the east coast of the United States is sinking. The sinking land along the east coast of the United States creates the appearance that sea level is rising. The land is sinking at a steady rate, which makes it look like sea level is rising at a steady rate. This has nothing to do with a recent change in climate, but rather it's due to the end of the ice age 20,000 years ago. If we go to the west coast of the United States, we see very little, if any, sea level rise. This is because the land on the west coast of the United States is not sinking like the land on the east coast. Since the end of the last ice age, sea level has risen about 120 meters or 400 feet. As the ice melted, sea level rose very quickly from about 15,000 years ago to 7,000 years ago, but since then sea level rise rates have been quite low. Jennifer Walker either has no clue what she's talking about or she's intentionally misinforming the press and public. We see a lot of that in climate academia. The research grants depend on spreading propaganda. I'm going to finish this up with a story about when I was working at a government research lab in 1994. I was working as a computer scientist at Sandia Labs in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We had to fly to a meeting at Bridgeport, Connecticut. The woman who made the travel arrangements for our group grew up in New Mexico and had never been to the ocean. She looked at a map and saw that the closest airport to Bridgeport was located on Long Island. So she booked our tickets to an airport right here, which meant we had to drive all the way down Long Island through New York City and up the coast of Connecticut. Her plan might have worked 20,000 years ago when sea level was 400 feet lower. Politicians, the press, and academia are constantly misinforming the public about climate. This is keeping Toto very busy. He has a couple more videos he wants to make later today. You can visit him and Kyrie on the web at realclimatescience.com.